Senator Imee Marcos tuluyan ng nainis sa ilang senador. Mas makabubuti umanong magtimpi muna ang lahat tungkol sa issue sa China sa West Philippine Sea. Ito ang sinabi ni Senadora Imee Marcos, chair ng Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, sa kabila ng hindi masyadong pagtalakay ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. sa West Philippine Sea sa kanyang State of the Nation Address. Ayon pa kay Imee, dapat hindi patindihin ang tensyon dahil kung magkapikunan, baka mauwi lang sa delikadong sitwasyon sa pagitan ng dalawang bansa.
Votes necessary. Ang laking kahiyan pag natalo pa tayo sa General Assembly. Sigurado ba tayo mananalo tayo dyan? Mas nakakahiya naman yun. Pikon na ako, mainit na ulo ko, lahat tayo high blood na sa mga pangyayari sa ating mga isda, sa ating Coast Guard, sa mga barko na Pilipino. Pero, magtimpi muna tayo ng galit at mag-isip, pakiusapan ng maigi at hanapan ng solusyon.
Hindi tayo papayag na tapakan tayo ng kahit anong bansa at harap-harapan nilang sakupin kung ano ang atin. Lalaban tayo sa panghihimasok ng gobyerno ng China.
Enough is enough. Tama na. Sobra na. Ilang mga isda pa po ang matatakot at magdadalawang isip na maglayag sa sarili nating karagatan para makapaghanap buhay. Ilang magigiting na kawal ng Philippine Coast Guard pa ang hintay natin mabulag dahil sa pambubuli ng China.
Kaya nga sinagot ni President Duterte,
If I may interject lang, Senator Alano, you know very much that I am not identified with the political side of Senator Rizzo Ontiveros. We align together on issues.
Agree,
This is
Mr.
an
President.
issue that we align. On this particular case, I do not have, as a matter of fact, in my speech, I never mentioned about the United States.
Yes.
There's nothing here on my push for this resolution has nothing to do with
I'll
my
clarify that,
friendship
Mr.
with the
President.
United States.
Yes.
I just want to put that on record. And I think the frustration that we feel is the frustration that is felt by the Filipino people. I asked the Pulse Asia for rider questions. 8 out of 10 want us to strengthen militarily against the Chinese push in on the Philippines. Almost 9 out of 10 want the Chinese out of our territory. 9 out of 10, ha? That's 90%.
Hanapin
So-
natin yung 1.
so-
Dapat 10 out of 10 yun.
Hindi naman. Meron naman kasi, alam mo naman, meron naman siguro na iba yung paniwala. Ang punto ko dyan, the freedom of navigation is not for the US alone. It's for us. For example, when we try to resupply our Marines in Ayungin Shoals, my distinguished colleague, they will not allow a larger ship to pass through. Bangka lang po. Ang ibig sabihin, ang madadala lang nila ay pagkain at kung ano pa mga gamot. Yung my dear colleagues, hindi po sila nagpapadaan ng mas malaking barko because as much as we want to fortify Ayungin Shoals, which is already occupied by Philippine soldiers, just even to put a tent, they will not agree on. They're acting as if it is their territory already. As a matter of fact, that was the last skirmish we had when our supply boats were trying to send supplies to our Marines in Ayungin Shoals. And if you look at the map, Ayungin Shoals is between Pag-asa Island, which is a municipality of Palawan, and Palawan. It is closer to the Philippines. Yan ang punto ko. It's just so blatant na, alam mo, pag medyo malayo-layo pa, okay lang. It's just practice, medyo malayo din po yan. Ang aking speech kanina was just basically on Mischief Reef, Ayungin Shoal area, and Reed Bank. Before you know it, kanila na po yung El Nido. Before you know it, baka nasa San Vicente na po sila. Before you know it, nasa Aurora side na po sila, which is the Benham Rice. Because they are sending ships there now to the Benham Rice. So I think as a nation, I agree with you, we should discuss this bilaterally. But if all our avenues bilaterally will fail because they refuse to listen to us, as a matter of fact, their foreign ministers, I don't think they have Foreign Minister Wang, your friend, is no longer there.
No, he has returned.
He has
So,
returned.
Wang
Did
Yi is
did
now
he
the foreign
show up
minister.
now? He's back again?
No,
Because
no.
for a while he disappeared.
No, the one that disappeared has been replaced now.
Okay.
And the former foreign minister, state councilor, and member of the Politburo is back.
I'm
Mr.
glad to hear
President,
that.
I,
But
I'm going to yield
to finalize my point is, on the measure you mentioned earlier on Pimentel versus executive secretary, it was also held that participation of the legislative branch in the treaty-making process
Yes.
was deemed essential to provide a check on the executive in the field of foreign relations.
Yes.
And yes, the president is the chief architect, but it continues to mention that the Senate may express its opinion on foreign policy. And we've done that
Yes.
in many resolutions in the past.
Mr. President, I will yield to Senator Tolentino. And let me just say that I agree with most of what you said. Ang disagreement natin, ano yung tamang paraan, i-address yon. Nag-agree tayong lahat sa problema. Magkakasama tayo sa issue regardless of political color or administration. What I'm saying is that it's such a big step. And even if we can do it, should we do it without consulting the executive, because it might weaken us in front of the international community. But let me yield to Senator Tolentino.
President, just
Mr.
a
President, and
mild
with the
interjection.
indulgence of the good gentleman from
Mr. President.
Cavite, if I may just say quickly to the last comment
Because I
of the
have a
good gentleman.
5:40
Nanggigil
PM
Cavite.
boarding now.
Oh,
Just a
boarding.
mild interjection.
All right, Mr. President,
I'm
in that
supportive
case.
of this resolution, but if
Where
I
is the
may
dear
be-
colleague from Cavite going to?
If I may be allowed to continue with the interpellation on Monday, Mr. President.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. President.
of course. We may continue.
I had looked forward, Mr. President, to the Senate possibly adopting this resolution today, Mr. President, if possible.
Mr. President,
we
may,
can take
may,
it up if,
may I make a recommendation that I think,
We're a deliberative body. I said that in my speech on Monday.
Mr. President,
I think
may-
we should allow people to,
Mr. President, may I ask
participate.
that before session Monday, can we take this?
or else I will be
quick
called again by my minority floor leader for not following my privileged speech.
Sir President, maybe we can take this up on caucus. Do we pass it? Do we bring it to the committee, etc.? So if you want to pass it on Monday and adopt it, then if that's what the majority
May I
wants,
suggest,
at least because Mr. President, I'll just
yes.
give you one good reason why.
Uh,
Ang pinakamasama kasi is yung mga nakikinig sa atin sa kabilang side, alam yung strategy natin. So marami
That's why I don't
akong
want to put
dapat
it on a
isasagot
committee
sa inyo.
hearing. Yes.
Hindi ko masagot dito because hindi dapat sa publiko. It's not because it's confidential or it's backroom, but just because, you know, parang chess or basketball, tapos yung camera, yung coach, ganito gagawin natin, ha. So if you know, if I may appeal to our colleagues, let's have a short caucus just to discuss it. And of course, kung yun ang gusto ng majority, then we will submit. But at least mapag-usapan natin behind closed doors the implications of not being in sync with the strategy of the president. No? And in this issue, there's no majority-minority with the president. It's Philippine interest.
Although the Senate has stood ground many times by tradition,
Yes.
not always in sync with the executive.
That's true, Mr. President.
On
But
the issue of the
independent
VFA,
institution.
when the former president had canceled the VFA, we in the Senate stood
yes, Mr.
stood
President.
pat
But that
had
did
the
not
confidence.
weaken our position. But in this case, if we are not in sync, kung sasabihin natin ganito gagawin, sasabihin ng presidente, DFA, iba gagawin yung ambassador, as a former secretary of DFA, I have
I
stood there
understand your
negotiating.
position as a former secretary.
So we should
Foreign
strengthen the
Affairs
position of the country. And I disagree with the president on some issues. I might disagree with him on the China issue, how to deal with China. But I do believe he was the one elected, and we should at least hear out his people, the National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea and the DFA, so that we know where we're going, di ba?
So what we can do is have an early caucus on Monday to discuss this, and we take it up on plenary, we'll adopt it or amend it. But definitely one thing is for sure. We must condemn this blatant abuse of their bullying tactics against us. We cannot just let this pass.
Mr. President,
I think we're all agreeable to that.
if the resolution
And for the
simply
record,
states
Mr.
that, we
President.
can pass that right now.
President, good
So,
gentleman.
Mr. President, may I just
I'm
clarify
just,
that one line lang, no?
I'm just following on the last word of the President that the very point of this resolution is to strengthen further the hand of the Philippines na lalo na ngang lumalakas sa panahon ngayon na dumadami yung mga bansa at dumadami yung mga regional formations who are supporting us in our victory at The Hague.
Mr. President, you can be sincere, but you can be sincerely wrong. So what I'm saying is that if the intention is to condemn and to make a stand, unanimous tayo. Pero pag nagsabi ka na ng strategy, dalhin natin sa UN, kailangan pag-usapan yan kasi may historical background at may mga ahensya at mga in charge na nandun.
Question, my dear colleague. Question, what harm will it take?
It could
For us-
unravel all of the negotiations of a president because if the president agreed, I
But
do
the
not know
president
if,
does not have to agree, Your Honor.
No,
Kasi the president will say, we will study it.
well, then China, when we're talking, will say that the Senate wants something else. And so, meaning, Mr. President, if we're dealing with your child, and the child comes with you and sabihin, Daddy, sinabi ni Mami, okay na. And then goes to your Mami. Mami, sabi ni Daddy, okay na. So,
Mr.
of course,
President, would you
appealing-
didn't get
I'm
that-
sorry, it's
No, no.
not as simple as that.
No, it's
Maybe
as
I'm
simple
already
as
hungry.
that. You know, but, Mr. President, I stood before these people, no? And,
No, but I
and,
know,
and
Mr.
China,
Yes.
seeing that united ang Congress at Presidente makes a big, big difference from seeing that one part of government wants multilateral, the other one wants bilateral, one wants to go to PCA, other. They understand our democracy. But when it's the institution itself that made a stand, ibang usapan na yon.
But Your
Mr.
Honor,
President.
Your Honor, if I may just
Yes,
finish.
Mr. President.
The one thing I noticed with dealing with our friends in China is that they want to discuss it bilaterally because they want to keep it quiet. Once you take it out to the international community, ayaw po nila yan. Unfortunately, all our discussions bilaterally have not been successful.
That's not true, Mr. President.
Well, during your time,
the
yes.
judiciary-
During
there
your
were-
time,
and
yes.
I will tell you the reasons why behind closed doors. Because there are reasons for that. So my point, Mr. President, once sinabi ni President Bongbong, hindi, dalhin natin sa UN, eto tayo, multilateral, then we're free to agree or disagree and ano. Pero yung uunahan natin siya na hindi pa niya alam, of course, that's our privilege. But sometimes you withhold your privilege because it is better for those who are negotiating. For all I know, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, because Secretary Manalo is an old hand, very much respected yan around the world, no? And he knows Minister Wang Yi. For all we know, they are renewing ties and they're bringing up certain issues. For all we know, I do not know. That's why I want to know. I want to hear the National Task Force, and I want what Senator Risa is pushing. Actually, they've been consistent. They pushed that during the Aquino administration. They pushed that during the Duterte administration. She might be right, she might be wrong, but it deserves a discussion. That's what I'm saying, Mr. President.
Yeah, I think what would be fair is that we have a caucus about this on Monday, 3 p.m.
Mr. President, with the indulgence of our distinguished colleagues, I'm being scolded by our most senior member of the Senate. And that's just a joke, Mr. President. Not
You're
scolding.
being informed by our
Not
member
scolding,
of
Mr. President.
the-
Yeah. But the voice is kind of,
this body. Yes.
in body language, Mr. President, is kind of intimidating. Kind of, Mr. President.
We would like to
just a joke,
recognize
Mr.
with the
President.
permission of course, the last say will be the sponsor because she's being interpolated.
Of course, Mr.
But
President.
if with her permission, we can recognize Senator Lauren Legarda.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just allow me to state that I was not trying to intimidate the majority leader. That's the last thing I would want to do. I was majority leader more than 20 years ago. I simply wanted to echo and join in the conversation first. All of us in this hall today, Mr. President, 24 elected senators agree that we must uphold the arbitral ruling of 2016 unequivocally. There is no question about that. In fact, I am one of 4 authors in the Maritime Zone Act, which I believe is also going to be co-authored by Senator Tolentino. And I have a 20-page message which will be read in the University of the Philippines in a forum on the UNCLOS, on our arbitral ruling, and on the Maritime Zones Act, and on the Blue Economy Bill, which was included as a priority of the President in the State of the Nation last Monday. What am I saying? All these debates boil down to a full support of the arbitral ruling that the Philippines, of course, must exercise our rights in our exclusive economic zone, must fight for our fisher folks, must fight for freedom of navigation, and we appreciate the support of the international community. I believe that there is a process and a strategy for information dissemination and how to allow other countries to give us greater support. I am reminded by the minority leader that we had supported the DFA in an information, education, and communications campaign on the Hague ruling. So let us join the DFA in this so that every Filipino, not just in Palawan, not just families of fisher folks, would understand the importance of this historic ruling. However, to demand that our Department of Foreign Affairs, or to urge them to do an action that we have not yet fully discussed and comprehensively discussed with them, as well as the National Security Council, as well as perhaps the Coast Guard and other agencies of government. I would want to ensure that the ruling, which has been acknowledged by the world in very clear terms, will not be diminished even for half a point. So what am I saying? Hindi po tayo nag-aatubili sa ating pananaw na napakahalaga ang pagpapatupad ng Hague ruling. Ngunit kailangan po ang stratehiya ay hindi lahat binabasa o sinasabi sa pampubliko dahil, gaya ng sinabi ni Senator Cayetano, naririnig tayo ng kalaban o yung mga taong naghihimasok sa ating karagatan. And so I wanted to ask questions of the good sponsor just for elucidation.
Mr.
Oh,
President,
you have the floor.
no, I have to go, so
Yes.
may I just say one line?
I thought it was.
No,
yes.
I will yield to you with the
Yes.
permission of the good senator. I just want to end and then resume on Monday, if permitted, with my conversation with Senator Bato. No, he's a military, a police commander. No, he will not tell anyone to do an operation na hindi muna niya kinonsult yung commander. So we're asking DFA to file a resolution sa UN, pero hindi pa natin tinatanong yung DFA, tama bang strategy? Kamusta ba ang timpla sa UN? Sino ba kakampi natin sa UN? So yun lang po, sa issue na territory natin to, sovereignty, nagkakaisa po tayo doon. Doon po tayo sa tamang strategy. So if you want to pass the resolution, Mr. President, no, strongly expressing our outrage with what's happening sa West Philippine Sea, I think unanimous tayo.
Yes.
But baliktarin po natin, baliktarin. If I say the resolution should be, do not file a resolution, you would also disagree. So sa akin lang, Mr. President, let's not go into the strategy without asking the actual people who will bring it to the United
I
Nations.
think the gist of what we are discussing today is how, kung paano po natin condemn niya itong pangyayaring ito at may aksyon na ilalabas. Kasi ako bilang Senate President, marami na po tayong resolution na ipasa, and House Majority Leader, marami na tayong resolution na ipasa. Naubusan na tayo ng ink at papel sa kakapasa ng resolution at privilege speech dito. Ano ba ang kalalabasan nitong lahat ng condemnation na ito? So I think it's not just a matter of condemning. It's like the 98 protests that we filed. By the end of the year, it probably be 250 protests. If it's not if nothing's happening and our people are still being harassed, what steps can we take short of going to war? Because the only step that we can take is to buy more gray ships and white ships, put missile systems in our islands, and fortify Ayungin Shoals and all that. That is already one step towards a conflict with China. So, yung gusto natin, Ano ba ang kalalabasan natin dito? Mapapaos lang ba tayo sa kakasigaw dito sa Senado o meron ba tayong pwedeng ibigay na rekomendasyon sa gobyerno na sa tingin natin ay para maitigil na po itong harassment na ito? Yun lamang po.
Yeah, Mr.
I just
President,
don't want
Mr.
to make it
President.
fall on deaf ear.
And Mr.
Sa dalawang superpower na US at saka
Ang
China.
problema natin siguro dyan, Senator Cayetano, is magandang makipag-usap kung yung kausap mo ay matino. Sa totoo lang. Ang problema, kausap ni President Marcos, first state visit niya ay China. Nakausap niya po si President Xi, and during that meeting, they were very cordial, very friendly, and nagsabi po nila, they will continue to engage on freedom of navigation or movement within the West Philippine Sea. Wala pang ilang linggo na dumaan, ayun na po yung pag-take over na po ng green lighting or mga
Green laser.
harassment ng ating mga white ships po ito, Coast Guard and our fisher folk. As a matter of fact, since then, the President has called the ambassador several times to Malacanang. If you ask me, I would have been more harsh, actually. So, mahirap ang kumausap sa isang bansa na hindi mo naman matino. You started with your speech by saying that it was a phrase from the Bible. Fortunately, our friends in China do not believe in God, and nor do we believe in the Bible. Because I remember talking to one and I said, "Are you Buddhist?" Sabi niya, "No, I'm communist." So wala silang pinapaniwala na Diyos.